Welcome to the Hockey Writers Flames Faceoff, a weekly show with our top Calgary Flames writing crew, bringing you the latest news, rumors, trades, player grades, game results, and much more. From training camp to the playoffs, from draft day to the trade deadline, our team covers everything that happens with the Flaming Sea. So get set, get focused. It's time for the Flames Faceoff. Flames Faceoff.
Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Quinney, and this is the Flames Faceoff brought to you by the Hockey Writers. Now, we're a weekly show, and to make sure you don't miss one, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can give us a follow on Twitter and Facebook, and maybe give us a like if you like what you see on YouTube and Facebook. And be sure to share this with your fellow Flames fans. So with that, we've got with us from the Calgary Flames writing pool. You've seen them both often here, Colton Pankiw and Brett Krauss. Gentlemen, we got a lot to talk about this week, so why don't we get right into it? Wanted to talk about takeaways from the week. It's not been a bad week. The Flames beat the Bruins on Sunday, the Blackhawks on Tuesday. Ran into a little bit of trouble last night against the Jets, but nevertheless, the Flames they're a quarter way through the season. And when I checked on Saturday, admittedly, I haven't updated it as of today, but they were atop the Pacific Division, a point ahead of the Oilers. They were sitting atop the Pacific Division and the Western Conference. They're playing .725 hockey. They've got an astonishing goal differential of +30, and that as of Saturday was the best in the league. And the Carolina Hurricanes, they come closest, and they were at 25. So hockey pundits are asking everywhere. They're posing the question: do we break up the Flames? I mean, who can compete with these guys? So let's dive into that. Are they the real deal? They've got 13 games until their Christmas break, and I guess you're going to go 5 games against the Pacific Division opponents, and on December the 9th, they've got the Hurricanes coming in. Can they keep this torrid pace up? Brett, what do you think?
I think so. Kind of looking at their season so far, they've played really well, and they've gotten the wins, and I would argue even in most of their losses they were probably the better team in about half of them, and it just didn't work that night. They didn't get the win. I kind of look at last night, they outshot Winnipeg, but they just couldn't get the win. I think in a lot of statistical categories they're top 10 in the league, and things like Corsi, expected goals for, they even one of the top teams on the power play and the penalty kill right now. So they say that 70% of the time that teams are in a playoff spot by American Thanksgiving, they make the playoffs. So the Flames have given themselves a good shot, that's for sure, anyways, at this point of the season.
Yeah, it's been so good. The playoffs, even mathematically, will be hard to miss. Colton, what do you think? Are they actually this good? Is it sustainable? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it is. I think last season we kind of harped on it a lot. I think none of us thought they were a bad team last year. There was just so many inconsistencies that we did start to question if that was just the team itself or if they just kind of needed to straighten those things out. And I think they have. There's really been no inconsistencies in their game this year. I think Sutter obviously plays a huge part in that, and just the defensive zone structure and all that. And then goaltending's been great. I really do think they're for real. I think by the end of the season, I think them, Edmonton, and maybe even Vegas will be competing for that top spot in the Pacific.
Yeah. So none of us have to worry about a repeat of the 2018-19 season when they had a stellar year and were knocked out in the first round. Is what you're saying, Brett? Yeah?
Sorry, go ahead.
You're not guaranteeing that?
No, I mean, anything can happen in the playoffs. You got to get in first, though.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the things I always, think about with top teams is fans don't notice it, but you get, when they're so dominant throughout the season, they're not tested hard enough. And, it's surprising how many teams that just squeak into the playoffs actually go for runs, and then top seeded teams that you'd think would have a run, just for whatever reason, they don't rise to the occasion. Maybe the rot was setting in there long before the playoffs started, but it wasn't noticed. Not saying that's the case with the Flames this year. I don't want to take anything away from them. So, Colton, you mentioned Sutter. I know he's 150 years old, but maybe he's actually avant-garde. And what I mean by that is, when you look at the Leafs and the Oilers, they've got this top-notch talent like McDavid and Draisaitl and Matthews and Marner, and Calgary doesn't have that, but they're winning. Thoughts on what explains that? Is I guess there's more ways to win in this league than one. Colton, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's really been by committee so far. I think they play a really solid team game. I know you see with the Oilers sometimes the stats away from when like the McDavids, Draisaitl's, Nugent Hopkins aren't on the ice. I think with the Flames, that's not as big of an issue. I think they have just a really solid, really all four lines, and then their defense have been great this year, goaltenders too. And yeah, I think it was Pierre LeBrun that had an article talking about Sutter during his time off from the Kings till now, was really still watching hockey every night and kind of looking at different schemes in the NHL, how things have changed. So I think he kind of gets the term still of being an old school coach just because he's been around for a while, but I think he's done a really good job at adapting, and obviously the Flames record proves that.
Yeah. Brett, your thoughts? I mean, that's a good point Colton raises. I mean, he does get tagged with the old school coaching guy, but maybe that's a little shallow. I mean, maybe he's it's not old school at all. It's the way you got to coach in the league. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think he definitely gets that tag of being this sort of old school coach, but even in his, press conferences you watch, and he talks about being able to adapt, and, he even talks about analytics to a point where, you don't hear a lot of coaches still talk about that publicly. So I think, and he was, a couple of days ago, even in a press conference, he said that the game's changed even in the last 4 years. So I think this is a guy who just really knows hockey. He can, adapt and change the way he coaches. And I think he kind of just got that tag because the Kings played heavy hockey, and they just had Jonathan Quick, who was really good those couple of years, and so they didn't need to score a ton of goals to win 2 cups. But yeah, I think and there was an article floating out there that he's getting the team. He's turned the Flames into a checking team, and what that actually means is they just attack and play through the opponents, so they they're on pucks all the time, and they make you turn it over. But as soon as the Flames get the puck back, they're passing it back and forth, east, west, north, south, and all of a sudden it's back in the other zone. So it's I think he's one of the better coaches in the league right now for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll get to that a little later because Colton wrote a piece on that. So let's turn our attention to goaltending. Daniel Vladar. Again, as it's Saturday, I haven't checked the stats lately, but he's played 5 games, notched 4 wins, 2 of which were shutouts, and 1 overtime loss. Not sure if that was in a shootout or not. Can either of you guys remember?
It was overtime.
To the Leafs, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But he's got a .946 save percentage. And okay, that's over 5 games. I mean, I'd look good if 5 games, if that was a sample size. But and he's got a 1.57 goals against. Is he the real deal? He's 24. Does he have the potential? That's what I mean by that. Does he have the potential to be the Flames' #1 goalie when Markstrom fades? Because the heir apparent was Markstrom. What are your thoughts, Brett?
Yeah, I mean, he's still just 10 games into his career, and but he's looked, very good so far this season. I think he's a good bet right now to, kind of move up the ladder and become a starter. But I think Markstrom's still your guy for the next 2 years anyway. By then he'll be on to his 5th year in the contract, and that's when I could really see a transition at that point, because 9:45 is good 5 games in, but there's still a long ways to go. I can see him getting probably 20 or 25 starts, so might come back to it at the end of the season to see where we're at, but definitely he's off to a great start so far.
Yeah. Colton, your thoughts on it? I mean, I would have said, well, the replacement for Markstrom is Wolf, but I don't know. Could it be Vladar as number one?
Oh, possibly. I mean, I think right now it's looking like a really good decision by Treliving to pick him up for, I think it was just a 3rd-round pick. Like Brett said, obviously there's still a long ways to go. He's only played 10 or 11 career games. But I mean, there was some sample size in the minors from the past couple of seasons that suggested that he had a ton of talent. So I was kind of intrigued on him when the Flames did pick him up, and so far he's been great. Again, he's getting easier matchups in that backup role with Markstrom taking on the heavy workload, but so far he's been great. And I mean, if he's able to continue and just go upwards in his trajectory, then yeah, he could be the guy. Like you said, I think Wolf is still the one that makes the most sense right now. But I mean, if he keeps playing like this, then why not?
Yeah. Well, it's good to see. No one should have a lock on it this far out, because I think Markstrom is going to be around for 2 or 3 years at least. Let's talk about some of the call-ups and send-downs that we've seen. Call-ups from the HL and players sent down. A lot of fans have been clamoring to see more of the young guns from Stockton up in the big club. And this week we saw Walker Dewar shipped back to California. Ruzicka got the call up. My question for you guys is, what message do you think the Flames are trying to send their prospects in Stockton? Are they trying to incent them, saying, hey, there's a real possibility for you to play your way onto the team, or are they just being called up to cover injuries? Brett, thoughts on that?
I think the Walker Dewar call up was definitely injury related, with Brett Ritchie going down, and Dewar had a really good camp, actually, kind of just coming out of college as a free agent. But he's also a right shot too, which the Flames so desperately lack in their forward group. So I didn't mind him against his game in Ottawa. He had some good plays, but he didn't play a ton. The Adam Ruzicka one, though, is one I more see because of his play down in Stockton. They called him up and he was leading the league in goals with 10, I believe. And he looked really good against although it was Vancouver last year, they had just come out of their COVID incident last season, so it was kind of hard to tell, but he played well in my opinion. So I think that's definitely a guy who got a call up for his first half or first quarter of the season, I guess.
Yeah. Hey, Colton, what are your thoughts? I mean, on Ruzicka, and is he the right guy? Would there be other players that you'd like to see up, or maybe would have called up before him?
No, I think he's the one. It seems like since they drafted him, he's just gotten better and better. Big body, I think he has the potential to be a really good NHLer. So I'm excited to see what he'll do. I think with Sutter, he again, we've talked about it before, he really likes the veteran players. So how much of an opportunity he gets this go around, we'll see. But I'm excited to see what he brings. Like Brett said, we've seen him briefly last season. I thought he looked pretty good. And his starting with Stockton this year, I think he's earned this call up. I don't think it had as much to do with injuries as just he's ready for this opportunity based on his play.
Yeah. I mean, Brett, you're following prospects pretty closely. A lot of people are saying they'd like to see Pelche. Any chance of seeing him this year?
I think that's definitely a call up once the Flames clinch a playoff spot and he continues on this pace. Because I know you hear the young guys talk about what a difference it is from junior to the AHL, and then AHL guys say how much of a difference it is to the NHL. So that'd be quite a quick step to the NHL for him. But he's played very well in Stockton. I think he's top 10 in scoring in the league, and now leads the Heat in scoring. So I don't think he gets called up kind of as the team's still competing, but definitely a guy I see get a couple games in order for the Flames to rest some guys if they finally do clinch a playoff spot for sure.
Yeah. Well, Colton, give me one more here, and I'm thinking of our colleague Greg Chizowski. He's always saying Matthew Phillips should be called up. He's writing articles about it. Your thoughts on Phillips at all?
Yeah, I starting to get a bit hesitant on Phillips' future, at least as a Flame. I think this was a big camp for him, I think, to come in and earn that spot. And then we talked about it. They signed veteran guys like Lewis, and I think that kind of maybe has spelled the end for him. We'll see. But I think one guy that I would be interested in would be Connor Mackey. I think he's a guy that even last year I thought maybe would be able to stick with the roster, and he got some games in. But that could be one player. But I think Ruzicka's the big one. But yeah, Connor Mackey be the one other one maybe that I'd keep my eye on.
Yeah. What about Gaudreau, Brett? He's just up and down. I can't figure out why he can't stick.
Yeah, definitely a bubble guy for sure, because he's gone down this year and played really well. I think he's over a point per game down in Stockton right now. So yeah, I thought he played well enough when Brad Richardson was out, but obviously Sutter going with his veterans again. But yeah, he's definitely him and Ruzicka are two guys that I kind of see as competing for call-ups and to get into the lineup this season. So we'll see how his season goes in Stockton. It's so far gone really well. So yeah, that's another guy that probably gets a call-up at some point.
Yeah. I was perusing the Stockton website, and I noticed a lot of these guys, including Gaudreau, become restricted free agents, I think, in the summer. So it'll be interesting to see what the Flames do with them. Are they, are they trade items, or do they re-sign them as RFAs? I don't know, because Gaudreau has been around so long, and I don't know, if I were him, I'd want some movement. I'm either going up to Calgary or I want out somewhere where I've got a shot at making the NHL. But it'll be interesting to see what they do once these guys become RFAs. Colton, you wrote an article, Flames Sutter, a candidate for Jack Adams Award. Does Sutter's success without any real changes, because there really haven't been a lot of changes in Calgary's roster this year. It's essentially the same as last year, with the exception of Coleman. Does that demonstrate that systems and teamwork is more important than the talent of individuals? Because when you look at the Leafs, they got 4 players where they're spending most of their salary cap, and with Sutter, it's a different approach. Doesn't have a lot of stars.
Yeah, I think systems, I think accountability is a big thing. I'd argue that they might even be a bit weaker this year just on paper with the Giordano loss. Obviously, brought up Coleman and stuff. But yeah, I think just Sutter's made a huge difference there. The only other guy I could think of right now that could maybe be in the conversation with him is Dallas Eakins in Anaheim. Just they seem to like to give the Jack Adams to a team that wasn't great the year before and takes a big step forward. So obviously the Flames are in that, as is Anaheim. But I think right now it's Sutter's to lose. Obviously, we're only a quarter of the way in, so a lot can change, but he's been great there so far.
Yeah. Brett, your thoughts? I mean, is Sutter a validation of the Vince Lombardi school, where you can take ordinary guys and make them into a team and make them do great things? What are your thoughts?
Definitely, I would have as the front runner right now for the Jack Adams. I don't really see any other coaches really turning around their roster as much as he has. just watching them too, they play so fast, and they're, there's always support for the guy with the puck. And so, and like Colton said, not a ton of turnover on this roster. And I think they, might even be a little weaker, but Shillington really stepped up and is now a top 4 defenseman in the league. So I think it goes to show you that the Flames are kind of an example that coaching does matter. You do need a good coach, even if you were to have 4 lines of elite talent. But for sure, I think he's done a great job, and I don't think a lot of people expected that when he was, kind of hired right after a game in the middle of March last year. So
yeah. No, well, I certainly didn't. I at the time I wrote a piece, Flames may regret choice of Sutter as coach. I heard about it from all my fans on social media. But I, along with other people, kind of summed them up as a sort of an old school, tough guy type coach. And based on what I've seen, that's not him at all. There's a real science that he applies to coaching, and he has evolved. What he was in LA, I don't think he is now. So he's a real student of the game. Speaking of articles I've written, I wrote one this week. Flames' early success means salary cap problems in 2022-23. And all I meant by that was, they've been successful, but some of the guys that made them successful are going to be in some form of free agency, and they're going to be demanding big dollars. And when they do, that's going to be costly. They're going to have some problems getting these guys under the cap. And the 4 I picked out, I called them the Fab 4. Would be Mangiapane, Tkachuk, Gaudreau, and Kylington. Just wanted to run salaries by you guys. I said Mangiapane would re-sign probably a 4 or 5 year deal for $6 to $7 million. Your thoughts on that, Brett? Is that too rich or about right? Would you think that's in the right salary range?
I think probably that's kind of around. It's kind of hard to tell. I haven't looked at too many comparables, for guys that not a lot of guys have had a trajectory like Mangiapane did, from being, a low draft pick and just kind of cutting his teeth every year and then making it. But I think around 6 million. It could be a little less, could be a little more, but I think that's probably ballpark. I'd say 7 million. Just depending how the season goes, might be a little rich, but I would not be shocked to see around 6 million for sure.
Yeah. Colton, where would you put him? 6 million or a little under?
I would still want to see, I think, let the season play out a bit more. Like, I think Mangiapane is a great player. The one thing I do see this season, I know over the years he's always had a high shooting percentage, but I think he's shooting north of 30% this year. So I think you have to expect that to regress a bit. So you might want to not get too eager right now. I think 7 million, like Brett said, would be pretty rich. But I think he comes in right around 6. But I'd be in no rush to sign it just yet. Just let the season play out a bit more first.
Yeah, I said Tkachuk would come in at between 9.5 and 10.5. Brett, your thoughts on that?
I think it kind of depends how his season goes. I mean, it's going very well this year, but I think around 10 million seems like a little much for me. I think I'd rather see 8.5 or 9, but I know he's got that qualifying offer, which I don't quite know how they negotiate with that. But I think once you get into the 10 millions, that's superstar range. And I think Matthew Tkachuk is very good. I don't think he's that superstar, Jack Eichel, Austin Matthews type player. He's definitely one of the best on this team. But that's definitely just getting into those high numbers is kind of what complicates things down the road, which is what we're going to see here after this season in terms of the salary cap.
Yeah. Well, and you're negotiating with the Tkachuk family, right? They're tough negotiators. Ottawa saw that with Brady and certainly Keith. I mean, he sat out in his day for more money. Colton, I mean, your thoughts here. One of the things that would concern me if I were Treliving is if I don't have him signed to Chuck by the trade deadline, then I'm heading into the qualifying offer. And if I give him a qualifying offer at 9, he could just take it and stay a year and then be gone. He could walk out into free agency, unrestricted free agency, and I've got nothing for him. What do you think's going through Treliving's mind?
I don't know if he's overly, I think given the RFA status, I don't think he's in as big of a rush as say like a guy like Gaudreau. I think that's a bigger not worry, but decision right now, just given he could, what Brett said, he's a great player. He brings so many intangibles, but I don't think he provides enough offense to be a guy that's in like the 10 plus million you're getting into winger at 9 million range, given that the qualifying offers that would be, I wouldn't want to go a whole lot higher than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you brought up Gaudreau. Brett, I said he'd come in at 7.7 to 8. Is that realistic? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think you got to look. That one might depend on who kind of signs first between him and Tkachuk, because I kind of see Gaudreau getting more money than Tkachuk, because he'll probably end up the leading scorer of this team. So, which would be, huge in his favor in terms of getting a little bit more money. But yeah, I think Gaudreau's another guy that could easily be in top 10 in league scoring. So definitely a guy I could see them giving, 10 million to, for sure, just the way that kind of the economics of the league has become. But yeah, I think definitely a guy that they also should try and get signed before, he becomes a UFA for sure.
Yeah. Well, he is, last I checked, he was number 7 on the list of top scorers in the league. Colton, your thoughts? Am I lowballing Gaudreau at 7.7 to 8 million? Could he go for more?
Well, I think he could. I think if he hits the free agent market, I think he could definitely get upwards of 8 easily, but it just depends if you want to be the team to pay it. I mean, obviously term's a bit of a question mark now, given that I think he is 27. So, I mean, if you go max term, then not that you have to worry about that right away, but that does become a problem a few years down the road. I don't know if, just given like his playoff success at this point, it hasn't been overly really impressive at all. I know that's been a big story in Calgary during his career here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think 10 scary. I would probably personally stay away from that. But I do think that, especially if he hits the free agent market, I think it's north of 8 for sure. I think if Calgary could get him in that 8 million range, and I say do it. But if it's a lot higher than that, then you really have to start considering other options, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to round things off, I threw Kylington out there on the list because he'll be an RFA, and he has been impressive up until they played Buffalo last week or the week before, I guess. He has a point a game. I pegged him at somewhere between 2 and 2.5. Brett, would you pay him that much?
Yeah. I mean, if he continues the body of work that he's put up this season, I think you're getting a good deal if you were to do like a $2.5 million 3 or 4 year deal. Just based on what he's shown. And I think the talent is there, and, the statistics are backing it up right now. I'd probably even go as high as 3. I think if you're paying Nikita Zadorov $3 million, I think that makes Kylington easily worth $3 million. So, yeah, I think they probably come in around 2.5-3 million for probably 3 years.
Colton, would you go 3?
3 million, sorry, or 3 years? Well, actually,
well,
yeah.
3
I mean, it doesn't even matter. I do either. I think if you somehow got him for $2.5 million, I think that has a chance to be a huge bargain contract. I mean, based on his play this season, he's playing well above that. Obviously, with the stuff that's happened in the past, just and not a ton of experience, that he's not going to get probably as much as he's deserving of. But I think if you get him for 2.5, even $3 million, that could be a huge bargain contract going forward.
All right, we're going to see. We're going to see, because these guys will all be hot and heavy into negotiations if they continue on as they have this year, to this point in the year. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we run out of time, but that was a great discussion as always. And thank you, everybody, for joining us for another episode of Flames Face Off. And we'll be back in another week. In the meantime, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter and Facebook, give us a like on YouTube and Facebook, and share this video with your fellow Flames fans. And do be sure to check out some of the great hockey content that we have here at the Hockey Writers. Until next week, take care.